What is up, you guys? So I'm going to show you how to set up your PRS guitar. So we already pulled the strings off, and one of the things I mentioned before I realized my camera wasn't recording was that when I take the strings off, I only loosen it maybe a turn or so to just get some of the slack off the string, but I always line up the whole of the tuning machine or tuning post with the nut slot. Now, you got the strings off, I wipe down the top of the guitar quickly, and then I want to look at this piece here. Okay, so this is our bridge, or our saddle, and this one doesn't have it, so it's going to be kind of hard to demonstrate the process I'm talking about. But sometimes if you have an older guitar and you look in the saddle slots on like this style of bridge, the Tune-O-Matic style, or two-piece, you'll see that there's what I call ghost wraps. And you can kind of see the wraps of the string kind of like indented into the material. This is brass. Depending on what guitar it is, depends on what material it is. Now, what you can do is you can get your nut radius gauge or your nut filing gauges. And if it was bad, you would just rock it back and forth gently till you cleared it up. And essentially, you don't want to just go straight because you want to make sure that you're getting all of the sides of the saddle, because the string probably will contact all of the sides. So it's not enough just to lower it. You want to make sure that you clean up the sides as well, so that way it's a smooth surface for the string to slide in. Now, we're going to move up here to the fingerboard. Now, the frets are getting a little bit of wear. This has been one of my main guitars for a couple of years, so it's not too surprising. But they're also not ready to be fret dressed quite yet. But I do want to polish the frets out a little bit and clean the board. So what I have here is I have an old wooden block that I had lying around that I glued some felt to. You could use an old blackboard eraser. Make sure you find the old blackboard erasers where it's the solid top and it's more of the stiffer material than some of the newer ones. Like, you want a blackboard eraser, not a whiteboard eraser. And for all the really young kids who may be watching this, we always call blackboards the one that you use chalk on, and then the whiteboards are like the dry erase boards. So this is Zona polishing cloth. This is like a 10,000 grit paper. It's the teal. It's what I use for in between fret work, and I'm just going to go up and down on the neck. And then I'm going to go side to side. Okay, so the frets are all cleaned up, they look nice and shiny. They've taken some of the surface scratches out. Now, it's not going to remove the dings or the flat spots, but it will remove some of the surface wear, which is really what I'm looking for. And now I'm going to spray it with some guitar polish, and then I'm going to clean up the fretboard. Now, the reason you can use water, you can use kind of whatever you want. Just there's a little bit of dirt on the fingerboard, and this is the perfect time to wipe it down. Not every guitar needs oil every time. Not every guitar needs a big, heavy fretboard clean. Sometimes a paper towel and some guitar polish will get all the junk right off. And now before we string it up, we are going to give it another wipe down. Mainly worried about the areas that are hard to reach once there's strings on it. Okay. So we're going to put 10 to 54s on it. And I always start on the bass and work to the treble. Well, that string got all tangled up. Now one thing for this, we're going to slide it in because it's their version of a stop tail. So take the string and we're going to slide it in, pull it over, and make sure it locks into place. And now I have videos showing you this, but I'm going to run through it real quick. So if you pull the string taut, I lift the string up with my hand and I give about the slack of my index finger. Then I'm going to wrap it around the post over the top of the string entrance hole I should say, and then I'm going to wind it down. Same thing with this. Pull it snug. Because of the angle of the camera, it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing up here, but like I said, there's plenty other videos that you can see that show you exactly what I'm doing. Okay, we're on the B string. Okay, so now we essentially have all the strings wound on. Well, okay, now we're going to clip the excess. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I want to pre-stretch the strings. So I'm going to grab two at a time, so the E and the B, and I'm going to hold my hand up here at the nut, and I'm just going to lift the strings up. Now I'm going to do the B and the G and the D, D and A and E. Again. Now that's before I really tune them up to pitch. I just like to give everything a nice pre-tuned stretch. And now I'm going to tune everything to pitch. Now this guitar lives in drop D, typically. So that's what we're going to set it up as. I say drop D, but yet I'm tuning it for a whole step down. Okay, there we go. So it's kind of in tune. We're going to stretch the strings again, and then we're going to set relief. Tune it one more time. Okay, so there's several ways to set relief. Relief, and I have a whole section of a new book coming out about it, but relief is how the neck is, I can't think of the word, manipulated between the string pressure and the truss rod. And essentially, if I was to pull this fingerboard off, you would have something similar to this laying underneath of the bridge, or the fingerboard. And actually that says upside down. So it would go something like that. And since they are two-way truss rods, if you turn the nut one way, it's going to make the truss rod bow up. So it's going to put back bow into your guitar. If you turn it the other way and tighten it, it's going to make it go down, making a big dip, causing a bunch of relief to go into the guitar. So I want to make sure that everything is set properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you like the quick road guy eyeball method, which is you put it in playing position. You hold, I usually hold wherever the neck meets the body. So I'll hold there. And then I'll tap at the 7th fret. And what you're looking for at the 7th fret is about the distance of a high E string. So if we were to take this 10 gauge string here and hold down at the first and the last fret at the same time and smooth this or run this over the fret, we would want it to be smooth going under with just a little bit of resistance. Now this is at about 12 to 13 thousandths. So I'm going to grab my truss rod tool. And now for this one, I want to bring it towards the center. Okay, so what I'm trying to decide is where I am on the truss rod spectrum. So you have all the way tight, which is creating back bow, loose, and then all the way tight, which is creating forward bow. So I want to know where this truss rod is sitting at before I start to adjust it. So I'm going to pick up the strings and move them out of the way. So I'm right in the middle, because it's loose, and if I go this way I can feel it tighten up, and if I go this way I can feel it kind of snug up. So right now the truss rod is neutral, which is actually great. So now we're going to tighten it, bring it towards me. I went a little too far. So the reason that I want to loosen it and see where I'm at is on any guitar that I'm working on, even if I know the truss rod or not, if I'm adjusting it, I want to find the neutral position, and then I want to see where the guitar is sitting without the truss rod interfering, and then I want to bring it to where the truss rod to where I want it. And knowing the neutral position allows you to kind of see where the neck sits naturally. It allows you to decide if there's anything going on with the neck. And then when you tighten it, you know that you're starting from a fresh point, so there's no chance of breaking the truss rod or having issues with it. So for me, it's very important when you adjust the truss rod to always find the neutral point. And I say find the neutral point because if it's a single, you just loosen the nut till it isn't making contact with the plate. If it's a two-way, either way it's technically tightening the truss rod, because either way it's going to, with a single action, there's only one way to tighten it and one way to loosen it. If the nut comes all the way against the washer and the headstock, it's going to tighten the truss rod. If you pull the nut off, it's going to loosen it. On a two-way, if you tighten it one way, it'll do one thing. If you tighten it the other way, it'll do another thing. So it's in that middle where the two-way truss rods are neutral. And most guitars have two ways at this point. Okay, so I'm going to recheck my tuning. Okay, now I'm going to put it in playing position. And I'm going to check it one more time for relief. And that is about where we want. Now we can set action. So I'm going to measure it with my action gauge. Now I always measure at the first fret, or I hold down at the first fret, playing position, and then I measure at the 12th. Now this guitar I like lower action, so I'm aiming for 2 to 3. And we actually just need to lower this just a bit. Perfect. Okay. Now we can't really do too much here in the middle unless we file down these slots. So with a bridge like this, you only have 2 adjustments. You have the treble side and you have the bass side. It is important though to not just set the high E and the low E and then forget about the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check every string and see where we're at. So we're at 2, 2, a little over 2, a little over 2, close to 3, 3. So it's the radius built into here is perfect. On an old Les Paul, I don't know if you play the crap out of your PRS with a bridge like this, you may see it already. But on older Les Pauls, when I worked at Gibson, I saw it a lot where one string will kind of eat at the slot a little bit more than the others, and sometimes it would be a little, the action wouldn't be right, so you'd have to replace that saddle. On guitars that are played a lot and toured a lot and just well loved, you usually end up having to replace either the saddles or the whole ABR second piece system. This isn't really an ABR because it's PRS, but nevertheless, sometimes if they get a lot of wear, you'll have to replace some of the parts. And one thing too is on bridges like this, a lot of times if they're really old guitars, like guitars from the 70s or 60s, I've seen leads collapse. I've even seen it on some of the 80s and early 90s where this bridge will collapse down. And that's going to cause the middle of the strings, or the middle of the strings, the middle strings, there we go. It'll make the middle strings feel kind of weird. It'll flatten out the radius. So when you're checking a guitar like this, you want to sight down it, and you want to see, is your bridge straight? And if it dips, it's time to replace this piece. If you're measuring your action and there's one string really low compared to the others, then you'll want to replace the saddle. And sometimes they get low because you do the preventative measure of making sure they don't have a bunch of grooves in it, and sometimes it wears through and over time you might have to replace them. But that's part of, the design. It's also why I said be very careful on removing material from it. You want to remove just enough that those grooves are gone. We're going to tune back up to pitch. Now, setting pickup height is a very personal thing. There's all types of rule books of what you should and shouldn't set your pickups to. The only thing I'll really say is, because I use thicker strings on the bottom than the top, so these are 10 to 54s. I always bring the bass down a little bit more because this is going to be a thicker core, so it's going to pick it up better, right? So on single coil guitars, make sure that you drop the pickups down to, if you're holding the last fret, you want them about 2/32 seconds away at least. This is like the minimum, or this is a maximum height for single coils. If you hold down the last fret, the bottom of the string to the top of the highest point on the pickup, you want it to be 2/32 seconds on single coils, which is 4/64. I kind of try not to go higher than that on any of my guitars, because once you start pushing the 2/64, 3/64 range, sometimes you can get some weird magnetic pull that you really don't want. These are set already kind of to the guitar, so I'm going to leave it. And the only thing that I do say that you could do is grab your screwdriver, go sit in front of an amp and listen to it and tweak it that way. Measurements are cool, but it's all an ear thing and a feel thing. But if you want measurements to kind of get you in the ballpark, I usually do 2 30 seconds to 3 30 seconds, and then I adjust. So at this point, pretty much all we have to do, we're not going to talk about regulating the nut because that's an advanced technique that I've seen too many people mess up their guitar. We're going to talk about intonation. So I'm going to use this headstock tuner. Usually I would use this, but it's hard to get picked up on video. I realize you're probably not going to see this, but it is what it is. So typically you'd want to do this in playing position, but we're going to do it laying down. So you would pluck the string, and you would see where you're at, and you would tune it to pitch. And then you would fret it at 12, fret 12. Now if it's sharp, that means you need to lengthen the string. So you would tighten the screw pulling the saddle towards the end of the guitar. If it's flat, you want to shorten the length of the string, so you would loosen the screw. And as you loosen the screw, make sure you're pressing the screwdriver into the screw head to make sure that everything keeps seated. Because sometimes what happens is you'll loosen it, and you're actually just pulling the screw out and the saddle doesn't move. So you want to make sure that you're keeping the screw seated into the saddle and loosening it so the saddle is actually moving forward closer to the pickup. So if it's sharp, you bring the saddle back to the end of the guitar. If it's flat, you bring it forward to the pickups. So that is how you set up your guitar. That's a very quick, down and dirty way, but just wanted to kind of make a quick video explaining quick, easy, basic setup.